Thanks. Well, Merry Christmas, everybody. It's actually Christmas Eve, and we have just gotten our first real snowfall of the season. So Max and I are out for a run. He's got his winter camo on. Hip up. Oh. Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. So today I'm going to take you on a tour of my toolbox and show you the tools that I use every day to repair machine tools and to basically do all the mechanical work that I need to do in the field. So contrary to the automotive mechanic, industrial mechanics seem to pride themselves on having as few tools as possible, and they often also have some of the crappiest tools possible. And there are reasons for that. Mostly it has to do with the fact that they have to be mobile. You know, that they can't wheel their toolbox out to every machine, so they grab a handful of tools and do what they can. You know, a lot of times industrial mechanics are going up and down stairs or on elevators or back and forth between multiple buildings, maybe even getting in a truck and driving to another location. So it's just not practical for them to bring everything with them. You know, typically in the industrial world, if your machine breaks, you call the maintenance guy, and he's going to show up with these three tools. And if he can't fix it with these three tools, he's going to tell you to call an electrician. And the electrician's going to show up with these three tools. And if he can't fix it, he's going to say, call in a specialist. So this is the box that I use for most of my field service work. I call this my 90% box. So the idea is that 90% of the work that I need to do can be done with the tools that are in this box. Now maybe they can't be done in the most efficient way possible, but I can get the job done. So I also have this caddy here, and it contains just some parts and various chemicals that I use for the jobs I'm working on. So this is a Kennedy 1022 cantilever toolbox. It looks like it was made in the 1950s, but it's actually only about 2 years old. These are still being made right here in the USA, and they're not expensive. I think you can buy a brand new one for about $150. So I added these D handles right here just to make the thing easier to move around. Now this is a small toolbox, but you can easily load it well beyond your ability to carry it. So here's the basic setup. I've got in the top tray wrenches, hex keys, screwdriver, some picks, and a scraper. Set of screwdrivers here. Got a utility knife, some pliers. Over here are all my ratchets, extensions, and 1/4-inch drive sockets. In the top tray over here is 1/2-inch and 3/8 drive sockets and hex sockets. And then in the bottom till here I have my multimeter, some calipers, punches, files, and then various pry bars and other pliers. So I'll get everything dumped out and we'll take a look at the tools on the bench. As you can see, if you're smart about it, you can jam a lot of tools into that box. Alright, we'll do the sockets first. So that's a full set of 12-point 1/2-inch drive shallow sockets from 3/8 to 1.25 inch. These are made by Proto. And it also includes the size 1 3/16 inch. If you don't have an 1 3/16 inch socket, you'll have to have a 30mm. 30mm is a pretty common size on Japanese machine tools. But you don't need to have both, so one or the other. One of the ways that I save space in my box is that I do not have duplicate sizes in inch and metric. So for example, 11mm, same as 7/16. 16mm, same as 5/8. 19mm, same as 3/4. And then once you get above 3/4, you really don't have to have both. Most of the time, if you have a full set of inch sockets or a full set of metric sockets, you're going to be covered for both. 30mm is the one exception. So these are shallow 6-point 1/4-inch drive set, standard and metric. Those are Craftsman's. This is 3/8 inch and metric, deep and shallow. It goes from 3/8 to 3/4. I believe it's 10 millimeter to 18 millimeter, and again, no duplicate sizes. So these Craftsman sockets here are actually out of my first tool set that I ever bought when I was about 15, maybe 16 years old. So these are old school made in USA Craftsman sockets, but they are still in pretty good shape. A couple of them, like you can see, this one I turned the outside down. I believe that was for taking the nut off of a grinding wheel arbor. On a surface grinder, that would be. Now, Hex sockets, the 3/8 drive ones are made by Blackhawk. The 1/2 inch drive ones are made by Wright. And the only thing I'll say about Hex sockets is try to avoid sockets that have stepped bits, meaning that they're a different size where they go into the actual socket than they are where they actually go into the socket head cap screw. The problem is that, you know, if you have the stepped sockets, or if you have the stepped bits, you have to go back to the manufacturer in order to buy that bit. And then from my experience, they always break at the step, at the transition from one size to the other. So avoid those when possible. The Blackhawks are pretty good. I haven't had too many of those break. This is 1/2 inch drive metric 12-point sockets, you know, just the small ones that I need to fill in the sizes that I don't have an inch. Universal joints and adapters from various sizes. Back in the back is a 1/4 inch drive flex head ratchet here, and then the screwdriver handle. And then these are made by Proto as well. These ratchets, this is a 3/8 drive. So I like round head ratchets. A lot of guys can't stand them, but I really like them. And this is, you know, flex head and super fine tooth, and these are pretty stout. So I've got the short one too. Same thing in the 1/2 inch drive. These are Protos as well with the round head, pretty fine tooth. Like those, they're very strong. Got a couple of 1/2 inch drive extensions. I think those are Protos. And then these are my 3/8 drive extensions. These are made by Snap-on. They're called, I think they're called Wobble Plus. So basically they can be wobble extensions, and then if you shove them in all the way, they're pretty much like regular extensions. Got a utility knife there. And then my pliers are made by Channel Lock. So I got pliers, wire strippers, wire crimpers, side cutters, and then I don't like regular needle nose. I prefer these duckbill style. Okay, this is a 45-ounce Deadblow hammer. It says Estwing, but this is actually made by Trusty Cook, and they're sold under various names. I know Matco sells them. Several other people have sold them too. This is also an Estwing hammer. I think they call it an engineer's hammer, but basically it's a very heavy hammer with a short handle, and it's really nice for pounding punches. I got a fingernail that will never be the same, you know, from hitting it with a ball peen hammer. I find this short hammer to be much easier to control. Wire brush, set of straight tin snips. That's good for cutting banding or shims or whatever I need to do. Got this small ladyfoot pry bar here, and then a pair of die hooks. Those are all three made by Mayhew. Got a hacksaw here. That's handy for cutting keys, shims, whatever. And then regular vice grips, needle nose vice grips. Got an 8-inch and a 12-inch adjustable wrench. These are Craftsman. And then this tool right here is a magnet that I can use to attach my mag light to whatever. Pretty handy little tool. You can buy that from McMaster-Carr. So in the back we have a scraper. This is a stiff blade scraper. It's made by Warner. This is American made, and it has a metal bolster on the back so you can hit it with a hammer. These are really handy for prying off covers, especially when some keener glues it down with silicone. These are hard-handled screwdrivers made by SK, and I really like the hard handle. I do not like rubber handles on anything because they never get clean and they don't last, especially when they're covered in oil all the time. And then I like the ones that have this hex bolster. That way you can really twist the ends off. This thing right here is super handy. This is made by Klein. It is a mini reversible screwdriver, And that is awesome for working on terminal strips where you got a lot of small screws. You don't have to carry around that goofy little set of jeweler's screwdrivers. This thing does pretty much everything that you need. 6-inch Mitutoyo digital caliper and a 6-inch scale. That's my lock and my tag for pacifying the nanny state. Got a set of jumpers here, and then my Fluke multimeter. I also have these little alligator clips that I can attach to the end of the probes. That's pretty handy for some things. So I've got this magnetic attachment on the back of my meter, and this is awesome because I can stick it right to the door of a control panel or the frame of a machine, anything magnetic. You know, a lot of times in a machine tool there's not space to open the foot up and set your meter on something. So if you can hang it, it's a lot more handy. And this is a Fluke accessory. I don't know what they cost. I think they're about $50, but it's well worth the money. Okay, combination wrenches here. These are made by Armstrong. Good made in the USA tools. Unfortunately, Armstrong is no longer with us. Apex decided to kill them off. I really like their tools though. Anyway, a full set of combination wrenches, again from 3/8, and these go up to 1 1/16, but I skip 1 inch because 1 inch is not a size that you normally run into, except on some weird hydraulic fittings. But 1 1/16 is a size that you run into all the time. And then this rack here, I made this out of some aluminum, just welded it together and cut out the notches for the wrenches. That way I can store them in that top tray of my box. And then I've got the metric wrenches here to fill in for the sizes that are not covered by the inch wrenches. So these are all the metric wrenches that you need to fill in the sizes here. Like I said, you don't have to have duplicates. I work in inch and metric back and forth all day long every day, and it's just not a problem for me to not have a full set of both. Yeah. So these are Knipex pliers. I think they call them water pump pliers, basically like the old school channel lock pliers. Got a set of picks here. Got a reversible screwdriver, and then these are ball end hex keys, inch and metric. These are the gold plated ones. They're actually plated with CAD or CAD plated or something, but I like the gold ones because if I'm working with somebody else, it's easy to tell my hex keys from their hex keys, and you know, you don't want to be taking another guy's tools, and you don't want another guy to be taking your tools. So the last thing is this tool roll, and it holds all of my punches and files. So one thing you'll learn about machine tools is that the concept of interchangeable parts doesn't really apply. A lot of things have to be fitted by hand. You know, keys have to be fitted, or shims have to be adjusted. There used to be a whole trade of guys just called fitters, and that's what they did, is they, you know, adjusted parts by hand or using machine tools so that they would fit together when they assembled a machine. A lot of that work goes on in the repair of a machine tool. So in the top row, I've got this 3-corner deburring knife, and there's a small prick punch, and then this is a punch that I made for folding the ears back on the retaining washers for bearing nuts. Sometimes that can be a real pain. And then down here I've got 3 different sizes of pin punch and pin starting punches. So the pin starting punches are great tools to have. They're much stiffer than the pin punches, so you use this punch to get the pin moving, and then you can use this punch to drive the thing all the way out. And then if you're working with taper pins, a lot of times the pin starting punch is enough to get the thing totally out. So taper pins are another unique thing you'll run into a lot on machine tools. You don't see them a lot outside of industrial equipment like machine tools and punch presses, stuff like that. And then I got a set of 3 brass punches here. These are made by Mayhew. Big taper punch. That's a 3-corner taper file and a round file, a flat bastard, and a double cut half round file. So also, there's nothing that sucks more than using a file with no handle. These are cheap. They're like $1 a piece. Put handles on your files. Okay, so the other thing I carry with me all the time is this plastic caddy. and it basically just has all the chemicals and stuff that I use. So it has this bottom tray, and inside here is some ring terminals and some zip ties, paint marker, magic marker, some different grits of emery paper, wire, Teflon tape, Loctite. It's like some grease. There's some Prussian blue leaking everywhere. More terminals, more zip ties. In the top I got electrical tape. I like the 3M Scotch stuff. Life's too short to use shitty electrical tape. This is Croyle. I don't know if it works any better than anything else, but that's what I like to use. And these two squeeze bottles, one has Vectra 2 Whey Lube and the other one has mineral spirits or whatever solvent I happen to be using at the time. Anti-seize, Permatex number 3, some gel thread lock stuff there. This is silicone grease, handy for O-rings and whatnot. Safety wire. This is high tack for holding on gaskets. Permatex number 2. And then some dielectric grease there. Silicone. And then this is like a deal so multiple people can attach their locks to a machine to lock it out. Alright, the very last thing that I'll show you is this little cart that I made for my box. So it's just some angle iron that I welded together and put some casters on, and then I made this nylon rope handle for it. This box is super heavy when I get it all loaded up. It probably weighs close to 100 pounds. So what would that be, like 40 kilos, something like that. Anyway, I made this cart and the box just sits inside like that, and then I can wheel it around as needed. It's got locking casters. Pretty nice. The only thing I don't like about it is it's a little tippy, so you got to be careful going across like door thresholds and stuff like that. But it does work pretty well. And I didn't invent this concept. You can buy sort of a commercial version of this made by Snap-on. They call them dog boxes. Okay guys, that's going to be it. Thanks for watching. IMAX.